Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, freedom and forgiveness coach, and a person just like you that is learning to navigate life and all of its challenges. I teach a forgiveness process like no other. It's a blend of practical and spiritual forgiveness. This process guides you into knowing how unforgiveness can be keeping you stuck in your relationships, both personally and professionally, and how it prevents you from releasing resentment and finding joy. Each week, I share practical and some not so practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and other people that are on this journey just like us. This is for you if you are ready to turn your pain into peace. Welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. Less anxiety, better self-esteem, more loving, freedom from your past, and better sex. This is what forgiving can do for you. Hi, I'm Brenda Reese, and welcome to the Forgive Yourself podcast. Today, we are talking about forgiveness and what it can actually do for you. Did you know that forgiveness is a choice? That we can actually choose to forgive or choose not to forgive? It is up to us to determine when we are ready to make that decision. I know, you're probably thinking, I'm really nuts when I say it's a choice, because it sure doesn't feel like it when we are hurt. Yet when you think about other people who have forgiven, are they more magical than you? Do they have some sort of superpower you don't have? Or are they ordinary people who have somehow found a way to work through their pain so they could make a choice to forgive? Now, we don't do anything without that thing having a benefit for us. So when we are thinking about choices, what's in it for us? The same would be for forgiveness. What's in it for us? Let's take a quick look at the benefits of forgiveness in a way that you might not have thought of. Now, we've all heard the list of benefits of forgiveness, right? We know it's about providing healthier relationships, less anxiety and stress, fewer symptoms of depression, improved heart health, improved self-esteem. Yet, did you know that new studies are now showing that the benefits include decreased levels of anger and hostility, increased feelings of love, enhanced capacity to trust, freedom from the events of your past, improvement in psychiatric disorders, and that forgiveness improves your endurance. Think of that for working out and having sex. And also, forgiveness improves your manifesting. Wow. Forgiveness really liberates you. Now, let's take a moment and talk about what forgiveness is not, so we can make it well-rounded. It's not excusing poor behavior. It's not forgetting what happened either, but it is about taking the pain out of the memory. And it doesn't mean reconciliation, because forgiveness can happen without that. But if you do want to reconcile, forgiveness is a very important part of the reconciliation. What is most important to understand is that forgiveness is not forgetting, condoning, excusing, or saying that somebody hurting you is okay. And it is essential that forgiveness not be seen as obligatory. It's important to keep repeating that forgiveness is a choice. The other thing we hear about forgiveness is that it's for you and not the other person. Is it nice to hear an I'm sorry from the person who hurt you? Absolutely. Is it necessary for you to have that to be able to forgive and let go? Absolutely not. Can I tell you a story? An example of this is my relationship with my father. I was the youngest of 3 kids. My sister was 6 years older than me, and my brother was 3 years older. My mom was a stay-at-home mom for the first years of my life until they told us one day that my dad was moving away. I was 5. I didn't quite understand what was happening. The relationship with my dad was strange, though. He didn't really pay attention to me, and later on in life, I learned that he didn't think I was his, even though I looked just like him and my siblings. He was blaming my mom for having an affair when he was the one doing that with my mom's best friend, who also happened to be the mother of my best friend, who was the same age as me. So when we went to visit one time, I overheard him say to my older brother and sister that he wanted them to come live with him. And when they asked about me, he said, "I don't want Brenda." Oh my God, you can imagine how devastated I felt. So much grief and heartbreak. And a side note, how much money I spent and time I spent in therapy working on that one throughout my life. Now, my brother and my sister were able to contact him later in life, and they talked with him until all of a sudden the letters, the cards came back, and the phone line was disconnected. Yes, this is back in the day when all we had was landlines. They told me that they thought he had died. Grief all over again for me. Heartbreak all over again. Because now there really wasn't a chance to have any relationship with him, or so I thought. A lot of years passed, over 30 years in fact, when in 2016 my sister was contacted by my father's sister, an aunt that we didn't know he had, saying he was alive and in an Alzheimer's facility. Well, you can imagine this mix of feelings that came over me, right? At first, that younger part of me thought, "Daddy!" And then another part of me, which I think was more like the teenagers, was more like, "Screw you for being alive and not contacting me." Then we were asked if we wanted to see him. Again, that younger part was so wanting him to see me and love me. Then the wise woman part kicked in and was reminding me that even though we feel like we want him to love us, would he really be able to? Or would it cause more hurt and pain for him and for me? So I listened to that wise woman, and I decided not to see him and work on all my emotions by being able to feel them and process them with the help of my friend Cindy, who is a somatic practitioner. I am so grateful for her. Then a short time later, my aunt calls my sister again and says, he died. This time for real. Grief all over again. And heartache, deep heartache happening because now I wouldn't ever be able to have a chance to have a relationship with him. Have you ever felt like that? The beauty of this whole experience was that I had some tools and steps that I could walk through with a coach to help me with the forgiveness process, because even a coach needs a coach. It was a beautiful healing that took place for me, and a forgiveness and understanding and acceptance that happened between me and my father, even though he had died. Then I was given another opportunity of healing when my aunt reached out to me. She said, "Brenda, I told your father what a mistake he was making by not reaching out to you kids after the divorce. I know he was full of shame, yet I kept encouraging him to contact you. Brenda, I am so sorry that your father treated you the way he did. You did not deserve to be abandoned and feel unloved. I am so sorry." I can still feel the rush of warmth through my body and my heart, and being able to take one of the deepest breaths I had taken in that conversation. I could accept what she was saying because I had done the forgiveness work, turning my pain into peace. So I could hear her and I could take it in where I couldn't before. Now, not everyone is given that opportunity, and we don't necessarily need that to be able to forgive. My point is that the healing had already happened because of the work I had done and the self-love and acceptance I was able to fulfill within myself through the forgiveness process. So getting that apology through her was like a cherry on top. I also knew the ramifications of what unforgiveness can do, and that had motivated me really towards forgiving. So let's take a moment and chat about what happens when we don't forgive, when we hold a grudge. So when we hold a grudge, it can bring anger and bitterness into every relationship and new experience. We become so wrapped up in the wrong that we can't enjoy the present moment. How many of you try to have a good time when you've just been angry? I know I have. We can become depressed or anxious. We can also feel that our life lacks meaning or purpose, or that we can feel at odds with our spiritual beliefs. And then we can lose valuable and enriching connectedness with others. We're going to talk more about what unforgiveness brings into our lives in another episode so that we can really make a choice on whether to forgive or not. Meanwhile, let me remind you of those benefits of forgiving. Decreased levels of anger and hostility, increased feelings of love, enhanced capacity to trust, freedom for the events of the past, improvement in psychiatric disorders, and studies are showing now that forgiveness improves your endurance. Think of that for working out and having sex. And also, forgiving increases your manifesting ability. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed this episode. And if you did enjoy it, would you do me a favor and follow us on your favorite podcast app so you don't miss one episode of the Forgive Yourself podcast, where every Friday you will get tips, tools, and stories so that you can turn your pain into peace. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to the Forgive Yourself podcast. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please visit our website at BrendaReisscoaching.com for more show notes and additional episodes. And would you do me a favor and subscribe to this podcast? And please consider rating and reviewing the show. That will help other people find us. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you next time on the Forgive Yourself podcast. Take care.